10 months ago, Ann Miller spent most of her day watching television. Emma Thompson felt frustrated, hemmed in by the four walls of her apartment. 10 months ago, most of these ladies didn't even know each other, living alone in the same apartment building. Something happened here, something to change their lives. Program Director Ruth Ann Gear was involved from the start and can tell it best.
Well, this is a group that we formed over a year ago, a group that wanted to work right here where they live, and they are what we call a mailing group. But in actual fact, what they do is a great deal more than that. They help organizations who have to put out mailing of various kinds or prepare kits for people who go out and solicit door to door. And these ladies make fundraising possible.
You'd be surprised at the response. Now, we started out with just 2 or 3. And we have this group, it's a representative group. We have this many, nearly every, not this many, every Thursday. We meet every Thursday.
We couldn't get along without the program. We just look forward to the time we do working.
What I like about this RSVP, I like the dinners they have.
Oh,
I enjoy that.
I think it means to them what it might mean to any of us. An opportunity to participate in what's going on around us. Many times the older adult, through no fault of his own, is cut off from doing just this sort of thing. And through our program, we like to think we can bring participation back into the lives of those who still want to participate.
Across the country, this mutual involvement is catching on.
They are dedicated people. They have resources that nobody else in the world has. They are very clever and anxious to show somebody else what they can do. And we have so many volunteers who have had skills that have lain dormant for so long, and they're just happy to pass it on to somebody else.
And there are many agencies and institutions that welcome these talents and depend on volunteers for day-to-day operations. In San Diego, Colonel Owen Clark has some difficulty in running the nation's second-largest aviation museum.
We have volunteers working on aircraft, on engines, in our library and archives, collating and sorting out our many photographs and documents, so there's no end to the variety of jobs that are available. We're very limited on funds, and by having the RSVP program, there's no question but what it helps us a great deal. No way we could get all the jobs done for the public and for their enjoyment without the volunteers. Dan Burnett is perhaps one of our most talented volunteers here under the RSVP program. He originally worked on the 1927 Ryan Spirit of St. Louis, which we have a reproduction of here in this museum. Dan is now in charge of our restoration of the JN4D Jenny, 1916 vintage. And he has probably more talent in that field than anyone we know of.
I've retired from 50 years of actual building of aircraft, and you must understand that in rebuilding an airplane, you have double the time because you have tear-down time and repair and then reassembly, and it's a long process, but it's a process of labor of love for those of us who did work and learn from the early days. We should be proud of what we have done, and I think that we should be proud to keep on with what we have done and keep ourselves busy. And thanks to RSVP, it's made it possible for a lot of people that wouldn't have been able to get from their home to the place of where they're doing their volunteer work.
For older Americans, life can often become an obstacle course. One of the biggest hurdles for many is the difficulty and the cost of getting from here to there. One important part of RSVP, the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, is to provide transportation to help put older Americans in action, enabling them to give their time and energy where it is needed most. There is an endless variety of opportunity for communities and agencies to use the experience and wisdom of senior volunteers.
We have a program of older people getting to know young children. The program started with us needing more time to give to the children. Then we wanted to introduce creative stitchery to the children, and they needed almost a one-to-one ratio with an adult. We as teachers could not give them this. Therefore, we started looking for help, and we discovered that senior citizens had the time to do it.
Yeah, do that down here. I missed that right there. Okay, I'll try it now.
The children, I don't think, will ever forget what state flower is in which state or what after they've worked for many weeks on embroidering it. And the senior citizens, it has given them a very meaningful experience in coming each week to help the children with this, because the children could not do it without them.
They're called the galley slaves, and it's a different kind of volunteering, entertaining at hospitals, institutions, and anywhere they're needed. Volunteering, remaining active after retirement, what one does with one's life. The choices vary as much as people vary. Lucinda White delivers meals to shut-ins, and for her, this job has a very special meaning.
So you go to this bill, and the meals are brought in, you fill your container, you have a certain route. I do, which is in the northeastern section of Hansell. And I take them to the patient. In warm weather, they usually standing out on the porch waiting for it. But cold weather, you have to knock on the door and go in, and then you take the meal and take it back to the kitchen. It means it's something I really look forward to. And meeting the people, and we establish a good rapport.
Well, there you are. Hello there. How are you? Fine. That's good. Fine. How you been? Oh, pretty good. You didn't think you was going to see me this Saturday? No, I sure did. You've been getting along fine, too.
I ain't much for talking.
You're not much for talking, are you? No. Wish you might a fine person, though. I enjoy coming out here. Well, you get the chance of meeting people, not only meeting people, you really become involved with people. Now we're going on the inside, and I'll put your meals up for you. People, if they're going to be stimulated at all, let it be by what I do for them or do to help them rather than just talking to them. I don't know where I heard it. I've heard it all my life, pretty. Oh, what you do speak so loud, I can't hear what you say.
Hi, Barry. How you doing? Pretty good.
Hi, how are you?
Ruth Ann?
Jim Spencer is a volunteer who tutors adults. He also helps Director Ruth Ann here on RSVP business.
We always use another volunteer, you know that.
Well, I might just have one for you. I was out at the mall the other day, and I ran into an old friend of mine, a man named Joe Johnson. So I told him about the tutoring I'm doing for the adult education program, and told him how and why I got into it, and he seemed to be quite interested. So I told him that I'd mention his name and phone number to you, and that you would possibly get in touch with him if you could find a similar spot for him.
Listen, do you see him?
I run into him.
Why don't you
occasionally.
give him, this explains our insurance, and this,
Okay, fine.
of course, the whole program with our telephone number, but I've made a note, so
Very good.
I'll move while he's interested.
Certainly be glad to give it.
We
Well,
have a
we're-
very, very informal interview with volunteers
But we need you next.
because they are hesitant, and particularly the ones who have never volunteered before, have a hesitancy in making that first step.
Barbara Davis heads another community's retired senior volunteer program. She thinks this program serves the government's real function in helping people help themselves.
This stigma on age and 60 years of age or 70 years of age, hopefully through programs such as RSVP and the other programs working with the senior citizens, will eventually dispel the stigma attached to aging.
I think it's a great mistake for some of these people who assume when they retire that they are just going to settle down and wait for death to come. I have no intention of doing that because I think that I can find a place where I can be active, where I can be useful, where I can be happy in association with other people. That, of course, is one of the things that I think RSVP does for all of us.
Helen Sparks works with Barbara Davis. A retired file expert, her job is to help man the RSVP office. Around here, they call her Sparky.
I think that all seniors should look forward to some kind of activity and not entertainment. I think entertainment grows stale after a bit. You can play cards so long, and then after a bit that is off.
More and more older people now realize that they have a choice, that they have the opportunity to do. Gisela Reisig taught herself to weave while in her 60s and is now teaching some other retired people. Phil Phillips has worked with tools and around cars all his life, and when his turn came, he sure didn't want to retire. Now Phil volunteers his time and experience to teach some elementary school kids things they may never have learned otherwise.
The elderly people like me, senior citizens, I think if they keep them, they need this. Not only kids, but the senior citizens need to keep alive. Shucks, they're gonna. Your brain and your body both will dry up if you don't keep active.
I came in and said, I want to serve some. And so she said, well, why don't you go to the Senior Citizens Activity Center and see whether you can help them? So I came in, and we talked for a while, and then the lady said, direct from Mrs. Lewis, well, the greatest favor you would do us if you would learn to weave. I said, to weave at my age? Yes, we have two looms and nobody to weave.
I've worked with kids for years. I've had a lot of experience working with kids of different ages, and I like it. It's remarkable.
I think mainly what we are doing here is maybe a little bit unusual, because we really have to learn a lot of things we never learned in our lives. And I think just as you are getting older, this is very important to keep young.
Got troubles. Well, that's the story of my life. We have always got troubles. What's your problem? Let's figure this out. This has got to come out of there, doesn't it? You can practically go in and leave them, and they can get her back together. Well, there might be a few points, a few of the fine points. Like one little girl here today, on one of these carburetors is some little bitty hairpins, and she got those things right on. And they're hard to get on too. They're not easy. Just don't see how they got it so quick. They're surprised the stuffing out of me.
In weaving, of course, there's something wonderful involved. You have to be creative. And if in our age we have a chance to be creative, I think that is quite something.
No sense in the guy sitting down and grow seed. You just do something and enjoy life, and this is enjoyable.
Older Americans in action. Senior citizens from all walks of life are enjoying themselves more while helping others. And this is at least in some small part due to the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. A part of action, RSVP provides that much-needed stimulus to bring volunteers together with agencies. With the aid of state and local government, Action provides the initial funding to programs enabling any American retired and over 60 to give his or her time once or twice a week. And yet many volunteers spend even more time than that, for as they have become more involved in their volunteer jobs, they have become more involved in life.
Stretch yourself, keep yourself active. But if we keep going, there's no limit to the age that we can expect to be.
By helping others, you're helping yourself last a little bit longer, I feel.
And there's a fulfillment that you will get. I would never rise get